What's up, guys? Welcome back to Badasses of History. Today's episode is about a guy who got stranded on a boat for a really long time. Cool story. Enjoy. In the year 1975, a badass was born. His name was Jose Alvarenga, and he would go on to set a horrific world record that will probably never be beaten. It all started in 2002 when he moved from El Salvador to Mexico to work on a fishing boat. He did this for around 10 years and was quite an experienced captain. Eventually, he owned his own boat and ran his own crew. On this particular day, his right-hand man was unable to join Jose for a 30-hour deep-sea fishing excursion. He sought out to catch shark, marlin, and sailfish in the hopes of raking in some extra cash. Unable to complete the trip solo, he invited a man by the name of Ezekiel to accompany him. Jose did not know Ezekiel, and in fact had never even spoken to him, nor did Ezekiel have any experience whatsoever. So we aren't really sure what our badass was thinking, but that's all water under the bridge now. So on September 17th, 2012, the duo set out for the deep sea with the hopes of catching some fish. Before long, their boat was filled with over 1,000 pounds of fresh fish, which equated to around 2 million pesos. In American currency, I think that's like $200, but that's not really important. A freak storm popped up lasting 5 days, and their electronic instruments had been fried. Jose was able to get out a distress call, but it cut out before a location was given. Adding insult to injury, they were unable to control the boat and were forced to dump their payload in the hopes of better maneuverability. This obviously did not work, and they aimlessly drifted across the open ocean. Pretty much everything was broken, and they were left with basic supplies and very little food. A search party was dispatched, but only lasted 2 days due to poor visibility. Jose and Ezekiel were now on their own. Being an experienced fisherman, Jose was able to catch small fish, turtles, jellyfish, and birds with his bare hands. They succumbed to eating their food raw, as there was no way of starting a fire. Occasionally, plastic and some morsels of food would be floating in the water that they would use, but otherwise they ate everything as is. Using plastics and tarps, they could collect rainwater, but that was a more rare occurrence. Usually, they would drink turtle blood mixed with a little pee, and that would keep them going for a while. 4 months went by, and Ezekiel was fed up. He got sick and tired of eating raw fish and drinking turtle blood, so he stopped. The next day, Jose kindly offered him a jellyfish and seagull liver sandwich, but Easy refused. The day after, Jose brought him a bottle of the very finest BP turtle blood on the boat, and Ezekiel begrudgingly shoved it away. The following morning, he was dead. The next 4 days were rough on Jose. He left the body where it was and frequently contemplated suicide. After all, it had been 4 months and no one was looking for him anymore. He kept track of time by recording the days, but after so long, he resorted to counting the lunar cycles instead. Day after day, Jose kept looking forward, catching his jellyfish and drinking his turtles. He never truly gave up hope. He just had moments of severe doubt, as we all would. He claimed to have seen multiple cargo ships in the distance, but with no radio, horn, or flares, he had no way of signaling them. On January 30th, 2014, after counting 15 lunar cycles, Jose spotted land. He abandoned his boat, swam to shore, and knocked on a door. A young couple saw him standing there, naked, holding a knife and yelling in Spanish. Now, this isn't recorded, but I can only assume they slammed the door, grabbed a golf club, and called the police. Within a few minutes, police and ambulances showed up, and Jose was saved. When he arrived at the hospital, the doctor said his vitals were surprisingly normal. Other than low blood pressure and some swollen ankles, everything else was A-OK. A few days later, after the media and doctors had their fill, he was permitted to return home to El Salvador to see his family. In all, Jose spent 438 days at sea, with around 300 of them completely alone on a tiny skiff. His family, though happy to see him, thought he was dead long before he even went missing. Apparently, they weren't in contact, and he didn't really care to inform them of what he was doing, so after many years, they assumed he must have died. Even his daughter was shocked. but also kind of annoyed because it took her father 15 months of being stranded on a boat to finally call home. Either way, everyone was united and lived happily ever after. Now for the controversy. Apparently, there are people that doubt this ever even happened. That the whole thing was made up and he was actually just chilling on an island somewhere drinking margaritas and eating coconuts. Even the parents of Ezekiel tried to sue Jose and accused him of eating their child. But we'll get to that. So first off, the boat was a ramshackle skiff, and experts don't believe it's possible for the boat to have survived that long. Next, he should have gotten scurvy a long time ago and died, as it's nearly impossible to survive in the open sea that long. Also, when the report was given that a boat went missing on November 17th, the two names given were Ezekiel and Cirillo, not Jose. And finally, with currents and wind conditions, it's highly improbable that Jose would have landed on the Marshall Islands like he did. So let's address these. The boat was pretty banged up, and photographs show that it didn't have much longer, so that's chalked up to just an amazing stroke of luck. As far as scurvy, Jose was eating a lot of raw fish and ocean life, which would be loaded with vitamin C and would therefore fight off the scurvy. For the next argument of the missing persons being someone other than Jose, his parents claim that in Mexico he goes by the name Cirillo, but also refers to himself as Jose Ivan, so that's just kind of strange. Next, the University of Hawaii ran a simulation to prove that the currents and wind conditions could indeed take Jose to the Marshall Islands and even wound up on the same 15-month timeline given the right parameters. Lastly, Ezekiel's parents were convinced that their son could indeed survive. They believe Jose saw him as a free meal and killed him to feed on his flesh. Because of this, they sued him for $1 million. Jose denies any cannibalism, but you can't help but wonder if he actually thought about it. Alright guys, that is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, then please tell your friends. Thanks.